Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs, your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. If you're listening for the first time, where have you been? We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're of course on all audio platforms, we're of course on X, we are on Facebook, we're on Instagram too, and we are back, just about as Tottenham Hotspur scrape through to the next round of the FA Cup. Look, I'm not going to try and dress it up. These guys don't dress it up. Wasn't pretty, but Spurs are there. You would argue if that game went 5 minutes longer, would Spurs be in the next round of the FA Cup? That's how tight it was. Should it have been that way? Not too sure. Look, we're always live. We've got three wonderful, regular returning guests here to break it all down for you. I'm joined by broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams, the lovely Christina Zandes, and the brilliant Matty Hayes on this Last Word on Spurs. As these guys give you their thoughts on the back of Spurs advancing in the Cup. Russ, I'm going to start with you to open this show. As I said in the intro, it wasn't pretty, but we are through to the next round. 32 teams, of course, remain in that next round. Porro's wonder goal enough on the night to really see off. I've got what to say. It was an entirely forgettable game. Bentancur was good, as were Porro and Udogie too. But a really frustrating night for both, I feel, Brennan Johnson and Richie in front of goal. But anyway, look, say no more. Spurs are through. No injuries as far as we understand at the moment ahead of United next week. Big win. The Cup run begins here, Russ, right?
Well, it would appear so, Ricardo, dear leader. Thank you for having me back. Anyone who thought the win over Bournemouth, and I include myself, was ugly, this was Quasimodo tonight. I mean, it was terrible. The worst performance of the season with the goal of the season, I think. And, we really, Rick, should just, play Tottenham Monopoly, go straight to Porro, do not pass go, do not stop, just talk about...
do not collect £200.
But there was no Ange ball. And here's a reality for me. When you've got half a team missing, you get a performance like that. And it's the way it is, a wonderful moment. Lots of people went missing tonight in our team. They were reticent to pass the ball. We were too slow. How on earth Hojbjerg doesn't start ahead of Ollie Skip, I'll never know. In a month of Sundays. And I keep going on about it, but Ollie is not good enough at this level. That's my opinion. But look, we've got the victory. We're in the hat for the fourth round. This could be the lucky-ish poor start that we need to just build some momentum in the FA Cup. But Ange will know, he will know that this team, without those major players, are bang average, really, mostly.
You know what? Again, it's one of those nights where I want to focus more on the result than the performance, because if I allow myself to go there, Russ, then maybe I would have really severe concerns about this next couple of months to come. Of course, without Heung-min Son, I think many would be delighted by the fact we saw Mickey van der Ven return to training this week. That gives us all a lift, of course. But I think Spurs' problems tonight weren't really the defence, it was more the attack. And I think that's where there will be elements of concern. Just a reminder, Matty Hayes is here. The transfer window's open. Let me just say that again. The transfer window is open. So Spurs can do business if they want to do. Before I bring in Matty, let me go to you, Chris. A sweet strike from Porro does see Spurs advance to the next round of the Cup. Not pretty at all, but many would say, Chris, it's all about being in the hat. Is that fair?
Oh, I mean, yeah. It was just such a terrible game. I can't believe I sat through that whole game. But honestly, well, I'll start off with a little bit of I want to mention about ITV, because I honestly thought that just really pushed it for me with the commentators. Absolutely terrible. I honestly think I'd rather sat through listening to Baby Shark on repeat than listen to them. And and I don't know who even decided to have ex-Arsenal players and then Laura Woods, who's known to be a gooner, to have them on there. It was just such a big... I don't understand whose decision that was. But anyways, that just riled me up at the beginning. And then I thought as well, it was that Brennan Johnson I want to speak about, because I really did actually see a lot of comments about him that he didn't play well. I'm going to be honest, I didn't think he actually played that bad. honestly think he was getting into position. I think he got in great. He was having some great touches, but he just seemed to really, he was struggling to get that finish. And if I'm being honest, I don't think he had any support whatsoever from Richarlison. I don't know what happened with him today. I don't think he played well at all. There was just no support from Brennan. And I really do think if Richie was more alert and getting into position quickly, I don't understand what was wrong with him, because you're a striker. You need to be looking as soon as that ball is going towards the goal. You need to run and get in there. You're a striker. That's what you do, your job. And to be honest, I think if Brennan Johnson was there and Richarlison was in box, I think there could have been some goals there. But it was just a complete mess. So that I thought was a bit frustrating, seeing all the negative comments on Brennan, because I do have a lot of faith in him, and I think he's going to be a really good player for us. He just needs some support, and to be honest, we could so see the difference from not having Sonny today. It just shows how important that player is. And again, Maddison, there was just no creativity, and he is the creative master, Maddison. So, you know, I'm literally just, please come home, boys, because we really, really desperately need you. The other thing I wanted to say as well was Emerson looked solid in the back, which I thought he had a good game. Obviously, as you mentioned, Destiny as well. But that goal from Pedro Porro just cleaned up the whole game for us. You know, it was incredible. Absolutely that goal was almost as stunning as he is, because he's a beautiful man. But yeah, thank God for him. But overall, guys, it wasn't a great game at all. But we got it, and we got the job done at the end of the day. So I hope all the fans who went to that game get home safe, because honestly, guys, I feel so sorry for them. But yeah, no, we got the job done, guys. And like we said yesterday, Ricky, you know, if anyone didn't see the show yesterday, because it was absolutely brilliant. I've not laughed so much in my life, so go check it out. But yeah, FA Cup.
Wobble. All I can say last night is Jar Wobble, that guy, I tell you. What a character. I mean, I absolutely love that man. I spoke to him afterwards. I said to him, I've got to have a word and say, Coity's got to get him on the lineup announcements for the next few games, because that man's pronunciation, I thought Hojbjerg, the one Hojbjerg killed us, Richarlison. I spoke to Crackers yesterday. He said it's even worse than his dad, trying to, obviously at the time when we had, what's his name, Bergwijn here, Stephen Bodkins, as we remember. So what can I say? Look, I mean, again, I'll emphasise that point. The transfer window's open. Matty Hayes is here. Matt, look, wasn't a great game, but Spurs get through it thanks to a moment of brilliance really from Pedro Porro. Not a lot else beyond that, being honest with you. I have to say, I thought Spurs looked really, really tired, but that win does mean now that we have a couple of weeks now between United away and the fourth round. No replay that would have really, I think, killed the players' time off, which I think if you're looking at a success tonight, number one, of course, going through to the Cup, you guys know what it means to me. For me, this is one of the biggest games of the season. Just to get through to the next round, Spurs have done that. And having that well-earned break, Matty, how important is that now, as we hopefully are going to be doing lots of transfer shows where Spurs have got a lot of signs before we next play, Matt?
Yeah, and that break is bigger when you look at the news that's coming through. Apparently, Ben Davies has done his hamstring, and just said it in the post-match press conference. So having a bit of extra time off is even more important. But look, you know, we're going to have these injuries the whole way through the season. I think that's just something we have to accept now. We don't have that luck. We do have to look at the fact that we're playing a very different style of football to what a lot of these players have played for 3-4 years. You know, Ben Davies over the last couple of years has been sitting back heading balls away beside Eric Dyer. You know, it's a very different game that he's been asked to play now. But I did think he was absolutely outstanding. Thank you, Derek. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I thought Emerson, as Christina said, was absolutely brilliant. But this is going to be a very good opportunity for us to kind of regroup and have a look at the last 4 or 5 months of the season. I think for Ange, I'm not going to say the football matches are a distraction, because that's what it's all about. But he can firmly look at the players that we're going to be bringing in. Hopefully Radu Dragusin will be done in the next couple of days, and then starting to look at what forward is he going to bring in. The Jota one seems to be going kind of hot and cold, and potentially looking to bring in a midfielder as well. So it's time for him to be able to look at that. And as Van de Ven, Bentancur, Maddison, Solomon, Sessegnon start getting back into consideration, you know, it's been a while since we've had a full strength squad, and I think things have changed since we've last had a full strength squad. So I think there's time there as well for Ange to look and find out what his new best 11 is, because Johnson wasn't really in contention for that earlier in the season when everyone was fully fit. So Kulusevski was kind of granted to be played out on the right, where now he looks like he's going to be strong in the middle. But then where'd you put Maddison? So there's a lot of headaches, good headaches for Ange to kind of get through and resolve over the coming weeks. And look, for us, I think, the first couple of international breaks of the season, we were all devastated because we were actually playing good football again. We were winning games. We didn't want to go 2 weeks without Tottenham, but I think the last month or two has been a little bit too stressful for my liking. So to just get a little bit of a break from that, then we 1 week of 5 Premier League games. We can enjoy all of them without worrying about Spurs potentially ruining the weekend. So it's a nice opportunity to reset for everyone. Tune into Last Word on Spurs transfer shows, and then fully go for that the second half of the season.
Amen, Matty. I mean, what I will say is that these obviously injuries are now re-emphasising more, of course, on the window being open. And what's mad is that I think there's more action after the game than there is in it, given the fact Andy's press conference now, it's all happening. So just to bring you up to date, and just confirmed in his post-match presser that Ben Davies looks like he's done his hamstring. He was then asked further in terms of whether that would have an impact on Eric Dyer leaving the football club. Now, as we understand it here on Last One on Spurs, Eric Dyer is in direct talks with Bayern Munich. He's already agreed personal terms with the German club. It is now just a case, I believe, of Bayern green-lighting that to happen. And has been asked if Ben Davies obviously is going to be out for a period of time, can he afford to lose Eric Dyer this month? And replied in one word, yes. Which I think tells you really, come around to you, Russ, just where Eric Dyer is in the pecking order for Tottenham, that quite frankly, he's prepared to lose him, despite Ben Davies now also joining Spurs' list of injured players. What do you make of that for you, Russ?
Well, a couple of things. One is with the high line, Eric hasn't got the pace, really, to deal with the way that we play football. And secondly, clearly, they are close. I would read into that of bringing in another central defender. We've heard about this fella at Genoa. Apparently, we're 5 million apart in this day and age. Really, just give him the 5 million if you want him and get him into the club.
Russ, you have been saying this for the past 2.5 years on this show. Let me just remind you of that.
I know.
On every player that we link with.
So I think that is probably the two reasons. I mean, I'm gutted for Ben, really, because last season I gave him quite a lot of stick. But I think he's done us proud in the last few games. I really do. He's a top pro. We all know he's a really nice bloke, but he's actually played some really good football. He's been good with the ball, hasn't given it away like a lot of our team have in the last 2 or 3 games. Sloppy passing, which Ange will hate, as we know. So I think Eric's run his race at the club and he knows it. And obviously, if I'm quite surprised Bayern Munich are in for him, actually. But it is what it is. So it doesn't surprise. The answer doesn't surprise me at all. So there's hopefully, fingers crossed, there's plans afoot to bring in central defender. Mickey van der Ven, of course, didn't come on tonight purely and simply because we need him for Manchester United. That's going to be a test for his hamstring. Romero to come back, but we do need backup, don't we, Rick? We've all said it on this show. All our viewers, all our listeners are saying we can all see it, So hopefully, Paratici is working his magic again behind the scenes.
Yeah, fingers crossed he is cooking, as they say. What I will just say, Ange still in his presser at the moment has confirmed that Gio also came off, as we know, but he's hoping it is just tiredness. There was a concern, I think, during the game that when he did come off that he was seen immediately for treatment. But as we understand it at the moment, and look, I have to stress, have seen this before, that we've had a press conference and where things haven't looked too bad. A couple of days after, it has got worse. I mean, Chris, just to bring you in, do you feel it is a concern with the way we are playing, essentially, that we are going to see more and more of these injuries? Because Anne just said that after a number of games, that ultimately, until the players actually fully adjust to his style of football and they actually get into the rhythm of playing this week in, week out, we are going to see a number of injuries like hamstrings that we've seen. We obviously, Madders has picked up, as we know, and of course now we've seen Ben Davies as well, and he's not obviously the first 2 players. I mean, Spurs, I feel, all season we've had at least 7 or 8 players out, really, all season. We are really battling when you consider. I mean, I think Spurs have done ever so well to be in a position that we have now, in terms of being inside that clutch of the teams at the top and hopefully now going on a cup run. How concerning is it, Chris, the injuries that we're picking up and the fact that they don't seem to be going away? If anything, they're building and building.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. It is the play, the style of play. That is what I feel is causing these injuries. We're not used to it, and to be honest, these players just need strengthening up now. That's what it is. And I think it's just going to be all around this season. We're probably going to start to see these injuries. It is a concern, but hello, we've got a January transfer window going on, so we can have the backup now. Get on with it. But I do think I've said it so many times in here. This is the start of football at the end of the day. And this season, it's just going to be the warm up, and we need to get those players strengthening up. I feel like we need to be much more faster on the ball, because I think that's why it's the pressure. When that ball goes out, the players literally run and they feel under pressure to get it, because there is not much. We don't have that any backup, I guess, because we're not used to this at all. We're not used to this play. So I think, I don't want to say it's a concern, but obviously it looks like a huge concern right now. But I just feel like we've got this transfer window now, get the backup, and I think we just need to strengthen the squad. So it's a hard thing to say. It's really hard, to talk about this, because obviously right now you can see Ben Davies, he's been brilliant, and now to have him deal with a hamstring, it's just like, who the hell are we going to have now? It's just, it's going to be that conversation again and again, I guess, with all these injuries. But the boys need to strengthen up, and we need to get on with it, with how Andrew's play, because to me, that is the best that Tottenham can get, I think. Now this is the play that I feel we've been lacking for so long. But so it's just get back up now, get the backup. We need it so desperately. That's all I can say about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come on to Dragusin shortly, but Matt, bringing you in, I mean, maybe a similar question to you. We've seen throughout the season, Spurs have had to battle really on all different fronts because of the injury crisis that we felt that we're in at the moment. Matt, is this sustainable in terms of the number of injuries that we're picking up? And, many would say, look, it's already caught us up anyway, because many would have argued that had Spurs kept their best 11 fit, they wouldn't be in a top 4 race, they'd be in a title race. Do you feel, Matt, is this really, and again, this is, pardon the pun here, the hamstrung of not having the full adequate players available to us? Is that really severely hurting our ambitions, do you feel, long-term, because of the fact that we don't have, of course, players available? And then you consider the fact that with the AFCON coming in now, and I think Chris said it earlier, we really, I felt, missed Sonny's presence on that field tonight. I just feel his character, I feel that the way he manages and leads the team, and just being that leader up top, I really generally feel Sonny is such a big miss. And I feel that maybe is one of the biggest takeaways. That I said, for me, at any cost, get through to the next round of the FA Cup. But I've got a feeling that it could be a really tough month if we don't go into the market and address the areas that I feel now is evidently Spurs need to go and address. What do you feel for you, Matt?
I do think there's a fine balance to be had there. I think on the point of, if we had a full strength team, for me, we'd be 6+ points clear at the top of the table. We beat Chelsea, we beat Wolves, we beat West Ham, we beat Villa. That's straight away 12 points, and that swing is there where we're clear at the top of the table. But the same could be said for other teams. Everyone has injuries. I just do think ours have been a lot worse. You have to look at why that is. Is it something that is within our control and something that we can change? To some extent it is, to some extent it isn't, because it's the beauty of the way we play is how intense it is, how risky it is at the back, how non-stop 90 minutes of just intense play. That's what makes it so good. But in the same way, that's also kind of affecting the amount of injuries we're having. And then if you start to reduce a little bit of that intensity to keep our players fit, how much quality are we losing? And there's a fine balance to be had there. And I think it's the same with regards to going in the window, and Ben Jacobs in that brilliant show we did during the week kind of touched on this a little bit as well, that if we're now without Ben Davies and we jump into the market to get someone to replace him imagine he's out for the season, which is, it's not going to be that bad, but we jump into the market, we get someone to replace him for 6 months, that then is one of our centre-back places filled, and it's not going to be Jean-Claire Todibo. We're not going to get that level to replace Davies, so you're then left with someone else who could maybe be seen as a little bit of deadwood. It could be someone on a level of Clement Longley who has his qualities, but isn't going to be that player that's going to put us to that level that we need. So while it's frustrating to see the squad being depleted, and while I think we can say maybe get someone in on loan for 6 months, I think it's a lot easier said than done. And I don't think Ange will want to kind of be too reactionary in the players that he's going to be bringing in. So yeah, it's a tough one, but what we need to remember, and I get really frustrated sometimes looking at the squad and looking at the depth that's there, and kind of getting annoyed that it's been 5 years since we had that team, 4 or 5 years that got to the Champions League final. And for us as fans, it's easy to look at it and say, but we should have started rebuilding then. We're 4.5 years into this rebuild. But in reality, it's only 6 months, because 4 years of that rebuild was bringing in players to play a Conte or Jose or Nuno style, which is sit back, defend as much as you can, and try and get them on the counter-attack. What we're going through now is the same as what we went through when Pochettino came in, when he had to get rid of every single player that was under his feet and then try and rebuild from nothing again. That's what Ange's doing. He's got off to an absolutely remarkable start. There are still gaps that need to be filled, but the difference now is we're starting in a much better place. You know, it was Kyle Naughton and Yunus Kabul that Pochettino had to get rid of a few years ago. It's a much higher level of player that we're getting rid of now. But also we have a sensational recruitment team behind him. So the building blocks are in place, and I know it's so frustrating to hear let's have a little bit of patience when it's been 16 years since we won a trophy. It's been 22, 23, 24 years under this ownership. But let's just see what happens. Let's just see where Ange can bring this. Let's give him the time. Let's hope Daniel Levy gives him the money and the trust in the market, and then see where we go. It's not going to be a quick fix, and I would be a little bit frustrated if we were reactionary in that market and tried to get someone just to replace Davis for 6 months.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that, Matt, 100%. And I think the key, like you say there, it is just, as you always are, trying to be measured and obviously try and get the right players in at the right time for the right manager, and make sure, of course, they fit in with the team. I think one thing that Ange has stressed in terms of since he's been here, he's not just looking for players, he's looking for certain profiles, certain characters that are going to really work in the dressing room. And I think the one great thing we saw in the summer is that we seem to have really struck a chord where every player that's come in has really bought in, not only to Ange, but bought into the style, bought into the philosophy. And we mustn't lose that. We mustn't lose that. And we mustn't lose our heads and just go out and panic in the window, don't get me wrong. But I think there is a genuine concern that we are, nearly a week into the window, and we haven't got that centre-back that we all knew Spurs needed in the previous window. And now we're in a situation where we've lost yet another player who, to be fair to Ben, no disrespect to him, Ben was not a natural centre-back anyway. So you're asking players that are playing out of position to play when, again, Ben was doing a job for the team and did it ever so well. And again, I can't praise Ben high enough. And we'll see, obviously, of course, in these next couple of days, just how bad that injury is. Russ, to come back round to you, we've had an update from John Eric Dyer. He said, look, he's injured at the moment. He pulled up sore in training. He couldn't take part. He was asked about the transfer speculation. He said, look, it's not connected and don't question my integrity. He was injured. You'll have to ask him about that. But again, I will stress the case as far as we understand here. Eric Dyer has already agreed personal terms with Bayern Munich. That move, as we understand, is close to being green-lighted. And by the fact Ange, by his own admission, has said he can go despite Davis's injury, I think tells you that we know where he is in his mind. And it would make you think, hopefully, Russ, that we're quite far down the line with hopefully bringing Dragusin in, if that is the man that...
Exactly. Just a little point. Ben Davis has quite often played in a back three for Wales, so the centre-back position isn't entirely alien to him. And what Christina was saying about the injuries, I think she is absolutely bang on the money. I think there's one other thing that we all forget, that in order to play that way, they've got to train that way as well. So it's double stress, if you like, on these bodies that are trying to do something that a lot of them have never done before. So maybe that is a factor in it as well. But to go back to what Matt was saying, and I thought he summed it up brilliantly, really, we mustn't panic in this transfer window. We've got to bring people in if they're available, if they can come. And Daniel, if they're at the right price, we have to only bring in people that are going to add to the squad. And I'm sure that Ange is going to be adamant about that. If we get to the end of the window and we haven't got a centre-back, what do you say?
I don't know what would happen on this show. I don't know what would happen in general with the Spurs fans if we don't bring someone in. Look, I would imagine, Russ, by the fact that obviously Ange is suggesting that he would allow Eric Dyer to go, I mean, we must be fairly down the line now, shouldn't we? Must be, Russ. I mean, must be.
Must be. I mean, Ange is a very clever man, and he does like to have a bit of fun with the press, though, doesn't he? As we've seen once again this week, which is great. I mean, I think he's brilliant. He's a breath of total fresh air in press conferences. compared to the grumpy last two we've had, and Nuno as well. So,
well, the problem with Nuno is, Russ, he didn't want to talk to anyone.
well, no, he didn't.
To
be fair, he was famous for that amongst us.
The problem is, Russ, towards the end, those press conferences were getting shorter and shorter and shorter. They started at half an hour. They went down to about 8 minutes towards the end.
We all know it was a terrible fit, but good luck to him at Wolves.
Absolutely. Spot on.
Or wherever he is, Nottingham Forest, of course.
Yeah.
How silly me. He used to be at Wolves. But, I mean, for me, this is a lot of people are going to disagree with this, I think. If we finish 6th, right, and got Europa League this season, I wouldn't be too disappointed because, like Christina, and I'm sure, Rick, you agree, and loads of people watching, next season is what it's all about. This is, we're at base camp. As I said on the show, I think last time I was on.
You did.
And Everest, here we come. And that's kind of how it feels. So if we can get halfway up from base camp to the summit of Everest this season, metaphorically speaking, I think it'd be totally brilliant. There's no reason, incidentally, with enough players fit that we can't do it. I totally agree with Matt that if we'd have had our first 11 and played the team that we played for the first few games, we'd be at the top of the Premier League, and I do think we'd be clear as well.
Yeah.
But if maybe that's football.
Absolutely, it is football. And you know what's interesting? I mean, we'll come on to the lineup, actually, because I think many are suggesting why maybe we haven't seen a more of a variation of a team. I mean, look, I was really, really happy with the lineup. Chris, coming over to you, because Angie made 2 changes. I think for those that are the older generation, which I'll put myself in now, that absolutely adore and need trophies in their life. And Chris, you were saying this on the last show, that we need an FA Cup, we need a trophy. And went really as strong as what he could have done. Obviously, we saw him make a couple of the enforced changes. Dejan Kulusevski back from suspension. Captain Heung-min Son has left now for the Asian Cup, as has Yves Bissouma and Pat Matissar for the African Cup of Nations. Now, centre-back Mickey van der Ven has trained for 3 days of the week after returning from his hamstring injury, and was always going to be cautious with him. He was back on the bench. Ryan Sessegnon, I think that was the surprise one really as well. No one saw that coming. Ange kept that very, very quiet. He also was back on the bench. He came on for the first time in almost 11 months since the Premier League home game against Man City on February the 2nd last year. And Rodrigo Bentancur captained the side in the absence of Heung-min Son. And there was lovely words from Ange on Bentancur being the captain and said how much he deserved and earns it. And that's 100%, I agree on that. We know Liz is also on the injured list now for a couple of months, but young striker Dane Scarlett was back and also available and did come on in the game. And also, just to bring everyone up to speed, Sergio Reguilon, Jed Spence have also returned from their respective loans at United and Leeds. But Postecoglou decided to not use either, and they cannot move to another club in January, as they cannot play for 3 clubs in a year. So we'll see how that pans out. Again, just to bring him up to date on Eric Dyer, not in the squad. We understand he's agreed personal terms with Bayern, although they are still waiting for the green light. And as we understand, Spurs are still in talks over a move for Radu Dragusin. Those talks do continue, but it was basically Spurs' strongest team, Chris. We had, of course, Vicario, Porro, Emerson, Davies, Udogie, Skip, Bentancur, Lo Celso, Kulusevski, Richarlison, Johnson, with a bench of Forster, Dorrington, Phillips, Van der Ven, Hojbjerg, Hill, Donnelly, Scarlett. The question I want to ask you, Chris, is obviously on the team as well, but are you surprised or a little bit upset we have yet to see the likes of Dorrington and Phillips? Because I think the question that we've still all got really that we're not sure is how good are these guys? But maybe the question in response back to that would be, well, look, Ange watches them every week in training, watches them every day. And therefore, if they were good enough, they may have had their chance by now. What do you feel for you on that, Chris?
I thought the lineup, when it came out today, I was actually really happy to see that. I'm pretty sure a lot of other fans, when they first saw that, they were like, yes, it's, it looks like a solid team. It's the best that we've got, basically. It's the strongest that we've got. So I was really happy to see that. And that to me just shows that Ange is taking this seriously, which is exactly what I want, because I want the FA Cup 100% to be taken seriously, for sure. It's a weird situation with the youngsters like, Jamie and that. But to me, we need to put out the strongest that we have got. So it's just, for example, if it was today, if we were winning, if we were winning like 3-0 or something, and it was in the second half, that's when I feel like maybe they could come on like right at the last 10 minutes or so. But I just feel like today it just wasn't. We weren't there. We weren't at that moment. But it's a tough. It's a weird situation, because we've heard, and we've seen obviously so much great things from these youngster players, and I do think they are the future of Tottenham, 100%. I mean, that's why they're their contracts going to be running more. So it's just I do want to see them, but for now, with the circumstances, with the injuries and that, and because I do want FA Cup to be taken seriously, I would only put the risk of putting them out is when when we're winning strong. That's it. And I know that sounds harsh, I don't know, but to me, it's just we need to get the strongest out there with whoever we have got, and I think it's just a bit of a risk. I would have even put on Mickey. That's how much I would have taken this cup seriously.
Yeah.
But obviously, I understand it. He's just had a serious injury. We've got a big game coming up in the Premier League, so of course I get that from Ange. But honestly, that's just how seriously I want this cup to be taken. So yeah, it's I don't know how they must feel. It must be quite frustrating for them. If another example as well is like, I can imagine if we got into the Europa League, for example, I don't want that to happen. But if that was to the circumstance, I reckon Ange probably would play them onto those sort of games. Not Champions League, because again, I think that would be a strong team. That would be a first team, situation again with the Champions League. But Europa, I reckon he would probably bring them in for that. But they're the future of Tottenham. So I hope that we will see them soon. But just for now, with the circumstances of the injuries, it's just a bit of a risk for me.
Yeah. Let me flip the question, Matt. How pleased were you to see Ange go strong? I mean, I saw you earlier in the morning. You were tweeting away, posting away, saying we need to put our strongest team out. And you know how much I love the FA Cup, love any cup competition. For me, I've said this before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record for those that don't or listen, watch Arsenal and Spurs on a regular basis, that for me, I put the cup competitions right up there with, for me, Arsenal at home, Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, Chelsea away. That's how big the cup competitions are for me. They're the biggest games of the season. I'm an old romantic. I want to see Spurs lift trophies. I want to see Spurs go as far as they can in cup. So how lovely was it, Matt, today when you saw that team come out? Vicario, Spurs number 1 in goal. And look, again, we know our limitations with what we've got defence-wise, but how lovely was it to see a team out there you could say, look, he's got as strong as he possibly can. We want to take this seriously, mate.
Yeah, it's exactly what we needed, exactly what I wanted. I was delighted to see it. And I'll be honest, I'm the same as you, Ricky. The cups, they do mean a lot to me. I've not as a fan seen Spurs win a trophy yet. So I kind of want to tick that one off the bucket list. So the different cup competitions are huge to me. And Paddy Hart in the chat a while ago saying I was too young to know Chaz and Dave. I was listening to them tell me all about Ozzy Ardiles' trembly knees earlier today. It's the cups are huge, and the FA Cup, it's the most historical competition in the world. It's the biggest cup competition in the world, and I think it's just another. It's another box tick for me about how Ange Postecoglou just understands this football club and understands the fan base. He made a mistake, in my opinion. I know some people disagree with that, but for me, he made a mistake with that lineup against Fulham earlier in the season. And I know we only ended up losing on penalties, but we lost. And a stronger starting 11 would have had us in a position where we would have won that game in 90 minutes and we're on for a cup win. I think he might have misunderstood I'm not going to use the word desperation, but just how much we want trophies in this fan base. And I do completely agree with what he's been saying as well, that he doesn't want there to be a desperation and he doesn't want to win a trophy for trophy's sake. He'd rather build a team that can compete for trophies regularly than a team that will just win a trophy this season and start again next year. So there's a line between the two of those that I think he needs to find, but I think today he did it absolutely perfectly. And what backs that up is since we last won a trophy, Birmingham City have won the FA Cup, Portsmouth have won the FA Cup, Wigan have won it, Swansea have won the League Cup, and where are all they now? Winning a trophy once it's not going to fix a football club, and it's good that I think our last two managers, that's what they hoped. They were going to win a trophy and then hope that it would bring us somewhere from there where Postecoglou was doing it right. And I think aside from just winning that game tonight, it was a statement from him that he put out that starting 11 with the injuries that we're having, with the captain's armband on Bentancur's arm. He was telling us that he gets it, basically.
Yep, no pressure on it, Matt. But if Spurs do go all the way, as Paddy puts it out there, any chance of a Limerick version of Spurs on their way to Wembley? We need someone to replace Chaz and Dave.
I wouldn't do that to you, lad. I wouldn't put you through the pain. I'll let Paddy work away.
Can I just say, mate, if we get to a cup final, you can do exactly whatever you want, mate. I don't really care what you want to do. You can do whatever you want. Let me tell you on that.
I'll hold you to that.
Oh, I bet. I tell you. Russ, to bring you in, Andrew said on the going through of the cup that we're pleased to be through to the next round. That is the main thing. We're really wasteful in the final third. We will analyse those things, feed it back to the players. But the most important thing is we are in the next round. Is that the most important thing, Russ? You know, again, we're going to sit here. I think in the second half of the show, we're not going to talk really about the game. The game was really, I've got to say, non-eventful. We'll talk about some of the key players and maybe what our concerns are. But is that just the main takeaway, Russ? Just get through. And I think Ben Davies' injury is a big thing as well. But I think, again, tonight's a night which I don't want to keep going on about it and sound like a broken record. It, again, re-emphasises the point Spurs need to do their business, Russ, don't they, this window? They have to.
They do. They do. And he's 100% right. I mean, that is the short answer. The feel-good at Spurs continues, although it's quite agonising to watch in the last 2 or 3 games. But we're getting closer to a few of our hombres coming back. And I think things will get better. I mean, I do think United is going to be a difficult game for us. By the look of it.
It's all, Russ, you know, whenever we go there, it shouldn't be. You're right. Whenever we go there, Russ, and then I'll let you come back in on this. Whenever we go there, I feel Spurs, we always seem to be in really good form before we go to Old Trafford. And then United can be any kind of team really in that period of form, but yet they always find a way to beat us. Whether it's the Ronaldo show, as you remember, under Conte, and before that we had the Bruno show, of course, a couple of seasons back. But I do feel, Russ, this is probably the confident I'm ever going really into Old Trafford. And that's despite the fact Spurs have, 9 or 10 11 players missing at the moment. Crazy, right?
There's no reason why we can't go there and win, in my opinion, even under sort of staffed, as it were. Don't forget the Mendes shot, well over the line.
Oh, don't get started.
There's a picture in the paper today online.
Oh, not again. We're not going. that could take over the whole show.
He's right. To answer your question, Ange, 100% right. Just get through.
I agree. Listen, what we are going to do, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We've actually got about 1,600 of you here watching us live. Again, thank you so much for all your incredible support for Last One of Spurs. It's a Friday night. Spurs are one of the first teams, of course, to be playing in the FA Cup this weekend. They have advanced. They are in the next round of the hat. By hook or by crook, Spurs are there. And really, look, I said, the game itself, I'd be doing you guys a disservice to put you through any real commentary from that game. I mean, I think the main real takeaways, to be brutally honest with you, that I'm seeing a lot of comments around is Brennan Johnson as a player and his performance. Now, again, we've got a mixture of comments here. James feels he was terrible. The Wild Mountain Man, Jack, says, Emerson Royale proves me wrong every game. And I think, Christina, do you write that for him, Chris? Emerson will never win the Ballon d'Or, but if he plays like that, it'll be amazing. I've got to say that Emerson Royale really, again, isn't it funny what managers can get out of players? And I think that's the thing. Andrew's got that way about him where he just seems to get the absolute maximum out of every single player. And I think that's, again, why we love him. And again, if you listen to a lot of what the guys say pre-match in terms of build-up to games, the motivational speeches that we have seen a few of them, obviously iconic on Hope to Sport and obviously for the Australian national team, that he makes you go out there and you want to run through brick walls. And I think that's the one thing I will say is that despite the lack of quality, despite the wastefulness of Tottenham at times, I think what you can't level at the players, the majority of them, is they're not giving their everything. I think you can't say that. I think they are giving their absolute everything. And Brennan Johnson's, again, it's an interesting one. Spurs have spent a huge amount of money on Brennan Johnson, if I can bring you in here, Chris, because you were saying earlier that you don't want to go too hard on the player. And look, where I'm at with Brennan Johnson at the moment is that I think it's far too soon to make a judgment here. He scored 10 Premier League goals for Forest last season. He's a homegrown player. He's 22 years old. He's so far made 14 Premier League appearances for Tottenham. He's scored 1. He's got 4 assists. He, of course, has made his debut tonight for Spurs in the FA Cup. And I do feel with Brennan at the moment that I think it will be more of a fair judgment at the end of the season to look back rather than do it now. The guy is adjusting to the new club. He's still trying to find his way into the team. I mean, look, would Brennan be playing with all these players, really? If everybody was fit, he'd be having Maddison supply him. Where do you stand for you, Chris, on Brennan Johnson at the moment? Do you feel there needs to be a little bit of time given here? He's a very young player. Big price tag he's coming for.
Listen, when I first started this show, I was defending Emerson Royale like anything. And I'm going to do exactly the same for Brennan Johnson now because I see so much potential in him. I really, really do. Exactly like you said, the guy's 22. He's played at Nottingham Forest and he was on loan at, was it Lincoln? I
before that.
This is overwhelming for him to come to a club like Tottenham. It's a huge deal. And I thought today, I thought he played great. There's been so many comments in not even just today, but there's been so many negative and quite horrible comments about Brennan that I can't understand it. I really don't see it. He's always in position. He's a fast player. He's always got a good touch as well. Great touch. But I just didn't feel today was a good example that he just didn't have anyone there to help him out. Richarlison, I felt failed him today. If he was there, if he was running towards that box, it would have been a completely different story. There would be no comments like that. And I really do think he is going to be something, Brennan Johnson. I really, truly do. And I think it's really unfair that these comments are coming in already because he needs to adjust. He needs to adjust to this team. He needs to adjust to the whole club. It must be so overwhelming for him. Like, to be honest, there's very sometimes when I see him playing and it's just like, the confidence needs to get there as well, which I think is such a huge and important, having not got confidence, it's a really difficult way to, you just got to have it.
Especially in this sport, right? Especially in a sport like football, you need to have confidence.
Oh, 100%. But I truly believe he will get there. I really do. And there's obviously a reason why Ange wanted him. So,
of course,
I have so much faith in Ange. So, of course, I'm going to have faith in Brennan Johnson as well. The only thing that I do not agree with about Brennan Johnson was the amount that we paid for him. That's the only thing that I don't agree with. 50 million, because to me, if I'm spending 50 mil, I expect all of those abilities to be there already, but he's not. He's going to grow into, a Tottenham player. He really is. So I don't think that these comments are, I don't think they're necessary at all. And I think we need to back our players, guys. Like, he's 22 years old, guys. He's 22. He's still young. Just back the players, don't make them feel awful. Like, they're humans at the end of the day, but Twitter's going to be Twitter, of course, or X, whatever it is. But I've got a lot of faith in him, just like Ange has. So, that's it.
You know what? Please, Matt, come in. Go for it.
Just jump in. I completely agree with everything Christina has said there, as always. There's a few comments there saying that 22 isn't that young. First of all, I think it is. But in a footballing context, we can't just afford to look at somebody's age. Look, if he was 25, 26, fair enough. I'd agree with you then, but at 22, he's only had one season of top flight football under his belt. Brian Gill had more than that when we brought him in. He's played a lot of football for Nottingham Forest. He got into that team at a very young age, had a good loan spell as well, as Christina said. But he's only had 1 year of football in the top flight, and it was spent fighting relegation. He was playing in a team that was sitting behind the ball, and just all he was told to do was, we're going to kick the ball as far as we can and you chase it and make something happen. And he was good at that, and he kept them up because of that. I remember a fantastic goal he scored at Ellen Road from the edge of the box that completely transformed the end of Nottingham Forest season. What he's doing now, he's been asked to play a completely different role, a completely different game. He's not the focal point, which your numbers are going to be a little bit inflated when you're at Forest, and every time you go forward, the ball comes to you. Your numbers are going to be inflated. He doesn't have that luxury at Tottenham. He's been asked to play different roles. He was swapped wings 3 or 4 times in that game today, as he has throughout the entirety of the season. He's playing with different players all the time. It's been Maddison, it's been Kulusevski, it's been Son, it's been Richarlison, there's subs with Valise and Brian Hill coming on. We can't talk about the injuries and how it's affecting our entire team without talking about the context of how it's going to affect individual players who are trying to settle into a new team and into a new style that is completely alien to them. I agree. Johnson frustrated me at times tonight, as he has done in recent weeks. I think sometimes he shirks the responsibility in the final third. I don't think he has the ability to take on a man that we kind of need in that team right now. But I also understand that it's not something that he's obligated to have, because it's not something he's had to do before. And obviously saw something in him and still sees something in him that he's outplaying there. He had a good goal against Wolves. He's had some phenomenal assists. That one for Kulusevski against Manchester City comes to mind. I think we need to look at the flashes of brilliance that we're seeing and try not to get too overwhelmed by the overarching form, which I don't agree, but could be seen as negative. He is a very, very talented player. He has a lot of developing still to do. And in a footballing context, in a footballing sense, for a player who's playing at a team that wants to win trophies, he is young, he's inexperienced, and we're going to see a lot better.
Yeah, it's a really interesting debate. And again, I agree with what you're saying here. And listen, don't want to say this for any reason, but I know a lot of the players do watch Last Word on Spurs. And again, that's why, if we're being honest with you, we try and do keep a fairly measured view. And I think any critique we try and give on this show is normally in a way in which it's positively profounded upon. You know, we don't like to criticise a player for criticising a player. I think whenever we've got an objective point of view on somebody, it's the hope that they'll go away, they'll maybe hear it, and they want to improve and be better. And I think, Chris, you are one of the shining examples of that with Emerson. You know, you did not back down with Emerson at times when, quite frankly, a lot of the fan base did. You know, you stood right by him and you said, look, this guy, when he has got confidence, can be a player. And look, it's taken 2 managers, but we can see what it does when a player has confidence, just how they can perform in a shirt. And, you know, Russ, to bring you in on Brennan Johnson, I know many again will maybe again look at the price tag, and I'm not going to buy this fact we're making up excuses here for players. I think there's a lot of quality attributes with Brennan. And whilst I agree with you, Chris, that it's a lot of money to spend on a player, unfortunately, I feel 50 million now is the going rate when you're buying a player based on the word potential, which sounds absolutely insane. But is that just the world we're in now, Russ, where potential is 50 million and you work with them? Well,
it could be, but he's an international footballer. You know, let's remember that. He plays for Wales. And they could be at the Euros, couldn't they? So he's not green around the gills. I mean, I totally agree with everything that, you know, Christina and Matt have said about his potential. It's just when I watch him, I think 2 things. Number one is physically a little bit lightweight, gets pushed off the ball a little bit. And I noticed that he, in the first half, he had a couple of brilliant touches, moving down the left. Was unlucky with one of the crosses from one of those touches. It was, you know, Burnley, their defenders, let's be fair, played pretty well tonight. They were organised. But in the second half, when he came on the right, he doesn't go past people. And I was looking at him and I think, oh, that's a shame. And he tried a couple of things and then he goes to the safe ball all the time. So he'll stop, he'll look back, he'll play it inside, play it back up the line instead of trying to do something and cross. And I honestly believe it's a confidence thing. That's all. And I think he's got everything in his locker. And if he gets confident and is playing in a Spurs team that is going to push on second class of the half of the season, I don't have any concerns about him at all. You know, would he start if everyone was fit, though? That is still the question because, you know, he's filling a gap at the moment. And I think overall he's doing pretty well.
Yeah. And again, I think, listen, where we are at the moment, the guys come in and again, I have to remind people, he wasn't with the club in pre-season. I feel, again, that's a really, really big key that when you consider Farage and the style that Spurs play, a lot of the players that we have seen that have really performed well, the likes of Pedro Porro, has had a full pre-season under Range. I would most certainly suggest that don't underestimate that. That's been absolutely crucial and massive to have a pre-season under Range. And look, I think we're going to see the best of Brennan Johnson for me, arguably next season. Give him the time to work under Range. He'll come back flying in pre-season. And interestingly, look, again, another player that does still headlines is Richarlison. Can I just remind people before tonight, the guy did get 5 in 5, right? And I think, again, transfer windows, as me and Matt know from doing these shows with these wonderful journalists that come on, they do send everyone a little bit crazy. They do. Transfer windows do send everyone a little bit crazy. The month of January, I can tell you that when the window is open, for whatever reason, you want to buy every player, you want to sell every player, you want to loan every player. The window does crazy, crazy, crazy things to people. And it wasn't really Richie's night. Again, he had a bit of an off night. There was a couple of times where he had the ball played in front of him, behind him. Again, guys scored 5 in 5 before tonight. It's really important that we remember that. And I think, look, nights like tonight, when we've said it here before, you know, towards the last 5 minutes, guys, I'll be honest, I said, look, just get the game done. Just get through. Don't worry about the performance too much. You're going to get games like that. And I think the most important thing is that I've always said that if you can't win, just don't lose it. Just don't lose it. I know none of us would have wanted a replay. I think that would have been one of the worst. Apart from going out, that would have been one of the worst circumstances, given the fact of the amount of injuries we've got, how much we would have needed the week off. It would have been really important ahead of United. But the key thing of the matter is tonight, we should be happy. Spurs have gone through. The only disappointment that we've seen tonight is that we've lost now Ben Davies for what could be a potential period. But to caveat that, we've got Anne sitting here saying that he's happy to let Eric Dyer go, which I think tells you really where I think Spurs are looking to build right now. It is about the future. That's no disrespect to Eric Dyer. I think he's got himself a wonderful move to Bayern Munich. I'm sure Harry Kane has had a strong word there. It just tells you what kind of a good friend Harry Kane is if he's getting you a move to Bayern Munich. I mean, many would argue that's one of Kane's biggest contributions, and it comes after he leaves the bloody football club. So what can I say about this football club in general? But you know what? One player I do want to mention is Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, because at the end of that game, he made an absolutely crucial interception that, had it not been for Pierre, that game was going to a replay. And Chris, again, you said it on the last show, you're very, very reluctant to criticise players where, especially with Pierre, there's been games that he's been brilliant in terms of coming on. For me, when he started games, he hasn't looked the greatest. So on the back of where we are at the moment and the window being open and the fact that Pierre saved Spurs' bacon to some degree towards the end of it, where are you on Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg? Do you still feel, like we said last night, if there's an opportunity to upgrade that position, we should do?
I still, with what I said yesterday, I still say, well, I'm still on what I said yesterday, basically. I was going to say Hojbjerg there, but yeah,
bloody John Wobble in the works.
That's all I can think of right now is Hojbjerg, right? But honestly, it's like I said to you guys yesterday. There's games where he plays brilliantly, and then there's games where he plays horrific, where it's like, what's even the point of him being on the pitch? But today, he made a really crucial and important, block. I honestly thought that was going in. So it's he's not consistent. He's just not a consistent player, and that to me is not good enough, because we can't be, risking these games with a player that isn't consistent at the end of the day. But I wouldn't mind him being as a backup player. But at the same time, if, like I said yesterday again, if there is a deal for him, then, I would be happy for him to go, like I said, for his own sake. It's exactly the same with Eric Dyer. I mean, I actually would be really chuffed for him if he actually went to Bayern Munich, and thank you, Harry Kane, if it does happen. But I do think for their own sakes, I wouldn't. There's a lot of criticism, obviously, with Eric Dyer, but I find it really hard to criticize him a lot, because he's just been so dedicated, and he's been with Tottenham for such a long, long time. He's Tottenham through and through. And to be honest, he was phenomenal for us at one point, So it's just so easy to forget the good times when they haven't had a great, few seasons with us. It's so easy to forget when they were important and when they were good. Because I thought Eric Dyer, there was one season especially where he was consistent throughout. He was our most consistent player. So, with Hojbjerg, I kind of feel the same, because I just feel like if there's an opportunity for them to leave, for them both 100%, for their own sakes, and I would be happy for them both. So yeah, I hate criticizing players. I really, really do. Apart from Richarlison today, because that was absolutely terrible. But honestly, for their own sakes, I think it's a good, it would be a good move for them both. So we just got to wait and see.
Chris, bless you. Matt, I want to ask you, Matt, about Hojbjerg. Look, we've had obviously a couple of journalists on already, and they've given us their view in terms of the fact that Spurs would be open to offers on Hojbjerg, depending, of course, what Spurs would get in return. Look, again, tonight at the end there, he's putting his body on the line. If he's not there, Matt, it goes to a replay. Does it change your opinion, Matt, on where we stand with Hojbjerg? Is it the fact that if Spurs do get a potential alternative come in that is better for Tottenham? Because I will keep saying this, that for me, he's not an Ange Postecoglou player. He's not set up, I don't think, in a way Spurs want to play, but he's still putting himself on the line, still doing a job, which I think tells you as much about his character as it does about the way Ange is managing him as a player, right?
100%. It's a bit of a tough one with me for Hojbjerg, because we know Bentancur, Basuma, Sarr, and the one I'm missing. We know there's lots more midfielders ahead of him in the pecking order. He's not going to be the one that's starting every week. He's not going to be in contention to play the big games. But for me, I don't know how much higher in terms of quality we can go over him and a player that'd be happy to play that role that he has in the squad. I don't know if we're going to get someone who is better. I think maybe the argument is, like you said, someone who is more suited, maybe at a similar level of quality, a similar value to Hojbjerg, but is better progressing the ball, is better with his passes. And I know a lot of people have been speaking about it the last couple of days that Hojbjerg, his progressive passing stats are right up there amongst the best in Europe, but sometimes stats don't tell the entire story, and we can see with our eyes that he's not good enough to do that in a Postecoglou squad. So, look, for me, I think that the point Christina made about the inconsistency is absolutely crucial. I mean, he came on today and he did make a few crucial interceptions, a brilliant block, and he broke the play up quite a bit that stifled Burnley's attempts to get back into the game. But on another day, he could have come on and been absolutely awful and been the reason that Burnley went on to win the game. So while he was brilliant today in that kind of defensive role, and while he has been brilliant in other games, there's also as many where he hasn't been, and we need someone that we can trust. So I can see things that will bring it both ways, but if there's a player that Postecoglou feels is better suited to this system and that he's more comfortable having as an option, it's a no-brainer then to move Hojbjerg on.
It's interesting, Russ. Am I looking at the wrong position here? Am I focusing too much on Hojbjerg? Should I be looking at the fact that tonight, with no disrespect, I know we're missing Sonny, I know we're missing James Maddison, we're missing obviously a creative hub there. Should I be more worried and more focused on the fact that defensively we didn't look too bad tonight? It was more attacking wise that we were really blunt. Should that be the focus, Russ? Should Spurs be looking to get in maybe another creative-minded player? Or are you confident that when, fingers crossed, Maddison comes back mid-month, if that's what we believe to be the time frame, and when Sonny's back, we've got enough to see us through? Where do you stand at the moment in terms of further up the field for you?
Good question. I think we should look at getting somebody in to challenge Bissouma in his position. Because he's been a little bit off his game. That could just be the way it is for a few weeks. I think we definitely need a striker and we need a centre-back. Those are the three positions that I've always said consistently. Seems like even when Harry was with us, we need another striker, which was a difficult proposition because, hey, you're great, but you're never going to play because we got the world's best striker here. But there's nothing like planning, is there? So those are the three positions for me. And in midfield, I don't think really you can ever have enough midfielders, good quality midfielders with different skill sets. And at the moment, we don't have a group of midfielders with all the skill sets that are necessary for the reasons my erstwhile colleagues and the viewers and the listeners are probably thinking the same that they've put forward. I mean, I do find it extraordinary, Rick, to go back to the starting 11, that you and many other people think that's our strongest starting 11. I mean,
when based on fitness?
Ollie Skip gets in there ahead of Hojbjerg for me. Absolutely no way.
I can't be honest with you, Russ. I think it's a general toss-up because the only reason I say that is that in the games that
our strongest 11, Rick.
The reason I say that is on the games that Hojbjerg has started, in my opinion, he's been at the point of those defeats. So can I be honest with you? For me, there's not a huge amount of difference between Skip and Hojbjerg, which I've said it publicly on this show, and again we'll emphasise the point. I'm not sure where Spurs are going is going to be where Oliver Skip is going necessarily. I think Skip will be a good Premier League midfielder, maybe around the top 10, the top 12. I don't think where Spurs are going based on Ange's system. I think you've said as well, Russ. I'm not sure if Skippy is going to be that player that can play that role for Tottenham. Let's just be honest, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not calling Ollie out and saying,
no, of course
you're
not.
A terrible person, you are a terrible footballer, you really should be a plumber. Nobody's saying that. I mean, in the Championship, it was absolutely fantastic as a number 6 in Norwich. And I think there is a place in a Premier League team, but Ange Ball is completely and utterly different. And we're learning about it. Some of us a little earlier, if we had friends at Celtic and we watched a lot of Scottish football, his previous jobs, obviously, as the Australian manager as well. But I reckon most of us didn't, if we're honest. So I don't think he is the player, Ollie, to fit that. And I don't think Hojbjerg is either. No. I was just talking about the starting 11 today, but it was pretty dire all round, wasn't it?
Should we say best 10 out there, Russ? Minus skipping.
Well, to be fair, it was a bit anonymous, I'm afraid. He is on, So, but it's not his fault if he's not used to playing that sort of football. And I can't see it changing. Maybe
No.
he will. But
Yeah,
I'm not going to do a Christina and change my mind. I will always have this here on Ollie, I'm afraid, under this present regime.
Chris, on changing your mind, you mentioned Richie being one of the players that really frustrated you on the night. And look, again, Richarlison is one of those players where I feel like he is one that absolutely breeds on the word confidence, that when he has got the confidence, he just looks so razor sharp in front of the goal. He looks like he's going to score all the time. When he hasn't got the confidence, he looks like a completely different player. Tonight would have been a really good opportunity. He had a few there really to get himself in a goal scoring position. Didn't take them. Any concern for you, Chris, this period now without Sonny? Can we rely on Richie, or do you agree with Russ that potentially do we need to look at a forward in this window for you?
Oh, yeah, it really was frustrating seeing him tonight. It's just, I think it was more disappointing in a fact because he's been playing really well recently and he has been scoring. And I thought tonight is a perfect opportunity for him to go and grab those goals. Like I said, you're a striker, you should be hungry for goals. To me, he just didn't look like his head was there. It's like, I've said it so many times. There was so many times when Brennan had the ball and I thought he could pass it to Richie, but Richie was so behind. He was late. His decision making was just so late tonight. And I was just so disappointed in it because I really thought, obviously, with Sonny not being there, he could have the highlight. But again, it just failed. I'm not going to criticize Rich too much because I've seen him play, especially with Brazil, and he's an incredible player. And I think that's why it's even more frustrating because I know that he has that ability. He can score goals. He's brilliant. But just with Tottenham, since he's been with us, it's just been a frustrating relationship. And there's just some players, they come in, but it's just not suited for them. And I feel like that actually might be the case with Richarlison. And it's just such a shame to see that because, I was really excited to see him come into Tottenham. Yeah. I really felt tonight Richarlison could have had his moment. Sonny not being there because he could just have it all to himself. He could have got all of the goals, but he just didn't take any of the chances. And it's just really, really frustrated me. And I completely agree with Russ. We definitely need a backup for a striker. And exactly like even when we had Harry Kane, we even needed it then. So we need it desperately. So yeah, again, if there's an opportunity for him in this January transfer, maybe it's got to happen. It's got to happen.
But bringing you in, mate. Look, I have to remind people. I know people think I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here. I promise you, I'm not, guys. He did get 5 in 5 before this game. He did get 5 in 5. I know. Again, many will stress to me the fact, the nature of the goals, and they're not wonder strikes. They're going to come on to Porros to close the show. But I really don't know, Matt, on this one. I don't know whether Spurs are going to really genuinely, bearing in mind the fact, as Russ said earlier, we're all going to have £5 million for a centre-back if we're going to go and look to get a backup forward in less than 3 weeks' time. I mean, what do you think for you, Matt? I mean, is it a case that we're going to have to ride through this period with Richie? Because, I mean, look, Ange just showed no signs of really dropping him or, even really playing down the chance of him not being in the team. He's given him an opportunity and played him into form, and he has got, as I keep on saying, 5 in 5 before this, Matt.
I think the reason he not the only reason, but one of the reasons why he's not been dropped is because we don't really have the options at the moment. And clearly he's never trusted Alejo Belis enough. That option is now gone for the next couple of months. Dane Scarlett coming back in, apparently ahead of Belis in the pecking order. I think what we saw from Scarlett tonight is a lot more than we'd ever seen from him in a Spurs shirt before. I know it's difficult to judge at 5 or 6 minutes, but he was getting involved. He made a chance for himself. He fluffed his lines at the end, but he looked confident in the box. He looked like he knew what he was doing a little bit more with the ball in those tight areas. My biggest frustration with Richarlison, and I think maybe it falls right into line with what you're saying about the fact that he has scored 5 in the last 5, is that whenever he starts looking good at something, it doesn't last. And the best example of that is the game at the weekend, against Bournemouth. I thought his hold-up play was absolutely fantastic. And there's 3, 4, 5 instances in the first half where he got the ball back to goal, a defender right in his back. Sometimes he tries a little bit too ambitious to turn and get down the line, but his hold-up play was brilliant. He was bringing in the midfielders and the wingers, bringing them into the game and really helping us pin Bournemouth back. Whereas today, he looked like he'd never received a pass with his back to goal before. There was a couple of times when he just didn't know what to do. The ball was bouncing off him like he was a brick wall. He was trying that fancy turn, and he just didn't seem to be aware of what was going on around him. There's been some times where in that run of games where he scored all the goals, where he's always in the right place. He seems instinctive in the box, where he knows where the pass is going to go. He's making the right runs. He knows when to gamble. He knows when to kind of stay put for the cutback. Whereas tonight he got all of that wrong. And the worst bits for me is that when he's in one-on-one, he doesn't know what to do. The ball gets caught underneath his leg, and that's not something that he's inconsistent with. That's something he's bad at, and it has been for the entire duration of the season. He had a brilliant opportunity early on against Bournemouth, and he tried to take a first time with his left foot. It went wide, and there was 2 chances tonight where he got in behind, had a brilliant pass play through to him. Admittedly, the one from Bentancur, the second one was a bit weak, but he just can't get that ball out from underneath his feet. No, I'm not going to give up on him yet, because there is a player there. You don't score 50+ Premier League goals without knowing where the back of the net is. You don't start up top for Brazil without having a bit of an idea of what you're doing. Maybe it is a style issue. I think that's much more easy to identify if you're a midfielder that stylistically you don't fit into the team. It's a bit more difficult maybe for non-experts to identify that for a striker. Maybe that is an issue. What I would say about Johnson, I'd say about Richarlison as well. He has been asked to play a few different positions this season, but it's the inconsistencies for me that just isn't. You need more than that from a striker if you want to be competing at the very top level.
Yeah,
Ricky, can I just add in something as well? Another thing with Richie is just like, I always seem to think he tries to do something like fancy, like try to make an incredible, insane goal by doing all these like weird moves before he takes a shot. And I'm just like, sometimes just a simple tap in is all you need to do. It's as if he overthinks it. When he's on the ball, you can see it. He's overthinking. Just tap the ball in the net. That's all you need to do. And I just, he tries to do like the overhead kick and all of that, all of that palaver.
He's a fancy player, Chris. He is one of those players. Yeah, he's a fanciful player. Listen, I don't take offense to this. He's Brazilian. He's Brazilian.
That's what I was going to say. He is Brazilian.
Go on, Matty.
That chance he had just before the Porro goal, which I think we're all going to overlook and we're going to forget because of what happened next. But I think that the initial cross was a bit too far behind him, that he couldn't quite get his head back to get something on it. But then when the ball drops in front of the keeper, again, I know his back is to goal. It's not an ideal situation where he didn't have someone at the edge of the box or in the penalty spot that he could lay it off to. But just take a touch onto your right foot and hit it. Whereas he tries this shimmy and a step over and forgets the football. I mean, that's the important part.
Don't do a little dance. Just tap it in, hon. That's all you need to do.
If he did that at 2 or 3-0 up, I would have been frustrated. But it's 0-0 with 12 minutes left in a cup game. You can't afford to try and do that. Just take a touch and hit it. He doesn't. Yeah. He just doesn't have that instinct, unfortunately.
Yeah. When we're talking so much about Richie, when you're getting comments of the managers, he's like Frank Spencer. If you've watched Frank Spencer, and some others do have him, he's not as bad as Frank Spencer. Believe me, he really isn't as bad as Frank Spencer. Look, Russ, we're going to close it on a positive, and one player that we can all say this season has been ultra consistent, man of the match. And if anyone could score a goal that's deserved a goal this season for the effort, the consistency, for the reward, it's got to be Pedro Porro, right? I mean, what a goal from Pedro Porro. Just when Spurs needed it, the Spaniard cracks an absolute swerving rocket into the top left-hand corner. He won the ball back himself. It was an absolute beauty, and it was worthy of winning any cup tie. Russ, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he had a rocky start, didn't he? We all remember Pedro Porro when he turned up at the club and people said, blimey, Reguilon's gone. Now we got another one, that sort of thing. He's going to be no good as well,
After Tim Sherwood's analysis of him, Russ, I'm sure you won't forget. I mean, Tim Sherwood battered him from day one. The poor bloke just arrived.
Yeah. Well, I think we could all say one or two things about Tim occasionally, couldn't we? Mr. Gillet.
Absolutely.
But for me, he has just improved immeasurably because he buys into what Ange wants to do, and he attacks and he defends and he'll chase every ball and he plays with passion. And, he'll gee up the fans when there's a corner. He could brush up a little bit, maybe, on some of his crossing, a little bit too high occasionally. For my money, just keep it low and vicious, get it in the box. But the way he won that ball back, and then he just moved forward with the ball, didn't he? And he had a look around and he thought, there's no one on. I'll have a crack. And it was like back at people of a certain age, I remember when, if they had Sabutio, they had World Cup goals, these square goals. And when you scored a goal in it, it was just like that Porro goal. It just pinged on the back of the net and flew out. I mean, I had a double take as that gone in.
Oh, it's an
And,
unbelievable strike.
Yeah, I mean, it was just tremendous. And he is a fabulous player. And, he's going to be playing at the Euros with his country, and he deserves his squad place. I'm sure he's going to get it. And he loves the club, and he loves what we're doing. And we forgive him the odd mistake because he comes up with moments like that. And he's got lovely hair and nice teeth as well.
Yeah, which I'm sure Christine will definitely most certainly adhere to on that point. We'll let Christine. I don't know why am I calling Christine Christina. Why am I calling Christina Christine? What am I doing to her? Chris, I've just aged you 20 years there. Sorry, Chris. Pedro Porro. I mean, look, that's another guy that I feel for me. It's the Ange effect, isn't it? He's come in, put his arm around him, and just told him that I am going to get the absolute best out of you, and that's exactly what he's done. I mean, I've got to say that for many that don't watch Tottenham, I find it very, very hard this season when we've seen Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher's do their predicted or their team so far this season to not have Destiny Udogie and Pedro Porro in there as your respective left and right backs. They have been absolutely phenomenal. And I know we had, obviously, of course, that period where we had Danny Rose and, of course, Kyle Walker. I genuinely feel, and again, I don't think I'm going too early here, I think these two could be even better. They're so young. They've got years ahead of them. They've got a manager that absolutely loves to play an attacking brand of football. Both players absolutely love to attack forward. They've got the pace to get back and defend. Are we entering a really, really, Chris, exciting time when we've got Porro and Udogie, two really young, youthful players, love to get forward, and they've both got goals in them?
Brilliant. It's just, honestly, I completely agree with Russ. He's been how much he's changed this whole season. Porro is just phenomenal, and every time he gets the ball, I do get a little bit excited. He's just phenomenal on the ball. Both of them, it's like a match made in heaven, and I think we've really, again, to Paratici, what signings we have got here, absolutely phenomenal. And you know what? I just can't, that goal today, honestly, it was like in slow motion when it first happened. It was just so beautiful. The angle of it was stunning, absolutely stunning. And he saved the day for us. Who would have thought Pedro Porro would have saved the day? Again, the crosses, I think they're actually pretty good, to be fair. His shots are too powerful sometimes, that's what it is. But do you know what it is with both of them? It's the passion on the field. Honestly, the passion that those two have is phenomenal. After that goal, I mean, you saw him. He was, it was just incredible scenes. Yeah. Him just with the badge. It was just lovely scenes to see. So yeah, I really do think we have got ourselves some really good players here. What signings have we got from Paratici again? It's brilliant. So you know what? Again, we can kind of see that as a positive because something is working there. Because a lot of these signings we've seen in the past have just been absolute flops. But we are starting to get some really good signings now. And look at the difference under Ange as well. He can obviously improve players. And I said it yesterday, I hope that other players can see this of what Ange can do, which makes more players want to actually join Tottenham.
Yes.
So it's so good to see that. And I'm really happy for Pedro Porro that he got his goal today. And I actually think we're going to see a lot more now. I think he will start to score a lot more during the season. But yeah, hats off to him today. He was my man of the match for sure. So yeah. All good for Destiny and Porro, yeah.
Yeah, great. Matty, looking to close it with you. What I will just say is that he has dedicated that goal, Porro, and the man of the match to the Spurs fan, Harry Pittman, who was tragically stabbed to death on New Year's Eve. Also, the club did display pictures on the big screen after getting the family's blessing, along with that hashtag #EndKnifeCrime, which, of course, we endorse and support here on Last Word on Spurs. And also joined in that tribute on the 16th minute, a really touching tribute. And, of course, our thoughts are with the family of Harry Pittman. Really, really sad, tragic scenes there. And again, look, if anything can be done to once again push and endorse the fact of stopping knife crime, let's hope that does try and help that cause, because it's a really, really scary time. To be living in London, it's scary. What can you say? It really, really is. Matt, Pedro Porro, I'll let you take it away. Because I will feel there was that period in disbelief of 20 seconds where first, Richie, I don't know what Richie did, Porro just made the best out of the Moore situation, and it came from nothing, which really is a nutshell with Tottenham. He looked up, such a beautifully clean strike of the ball, and what a way to win it, Matt. I mean, I said to Russ there, if any goal deserves to win a cup, got to be a goal like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get into the goal, I just want to make a point as well. I don't often praise that lot down the road, and like Ben Jacobs the other day, I often don't like saying their name, but they have a brilliant thing that they do every year with the first round of the FA Cup. They wear a fully white jersey with the no red as well, which is a fantastic gesture from that club too. But on Porro's goal, he's not going to hit one as clean as that ever again, and it was turning into the type of game that was going to need a moment of magic or a moment of madness to settle it either way. Otherwise, it would have been a turf war in 10 days or whatever it was. And he's threatened this before. He had that. I know Clive Tilsley mentioned it in commentary, but that volley against Manchester United, the first home game of the season, that the cannon back off the post. He's had a few good free kicks, scored a few good goals last season. I think there was one against Southampton in particular. It was a powerful effort into the front top corner. But it's just one of the many aspects of his game that he has. And I think one thing that's underrated is his reading of the game, and it's so crucial in a system, one that is so tactically demanding, that like Postecoglou's, his knowledge of knowing where to be in every moment is absolutely immense. And I always just like to come back to what Gary Neville said at the start of the season, saying Porro will never work in this. He is tailor-made for this system. I'll admit we've lucked out because we bought him for a very, very different system, and he is fitting this so perfectly. So there's a little bit of luck there, but just some moments, even when we're trying to pass out from the back, just dropping into little pockets, allowing Vicario to give the ball to him so we can bounce it off either side to the centre backs, picking up the kind of inside pocket space and occupying one of the midfielders, which allows Kulusevski to have a bit more space when he's out on the right hand side. Those underlaps, Udogie is fantastic at it the other side as well, but I think Porro is just a level ahead in his understanding of what's required from him in this system. And then when he gets on the ball, there's a few times tonight where he was gliding past the Burnley players as if they weren't even there. His passing range that we've started to see in the last couple of weeks as well, those diagonals, I think we're becoming a bit more reliant on them. There's a few brilliant balls to Richarlison, just like in that game as well. He's really got everything, and as much as I think we have a fullback for the next 5, 6, 7 years, I think Spain do as well. And he's following a phenomenal list of players in that Spanish national team, and I think he's going to fit right in and reach the level that some of them have, the Carvajals, the Sergio Ramoses, and he's doing it all in the Spurs jersey. A little bit magic, isn't it?
Honestly is. Matt, listen, take the words out of my mouth. Absolutely sensational way, of course, to score for the first game, or first goal of this season for him, and what a moment to do it in. In terms of rounding up the game, Donnelly, Scarlett, Sessegnon replaced Bentancur, Richie and Johnson. It was, some will feel it's great to see Sessegnon back after 11 months. Look, whether you feel Sessegnon has not got a future here, or if he has got a future, look, the guy's been out for 11 months. I think we do the right thing and say, look, great to see him back. I'm not sure if he'll get back into the Spurs team, given the fact now where we are with those fullbacks that I mentioned. The actually was a big moment for Sessegnon on his return. His shot was tipped wide by the goalkeeper, and we nearly did see Spurs do their absolute best to force a replay of their own. Arijanet Muric flicked on a corner at the near post, and Alderkill couldn't get enough on the volley right in front of the goal. And I just loved at the ending of that, Vicario absolutely bollocking the players in front of him for not doing their jobs. And that's what I absolutely love about Vicario. He'll give it out. And no disrespect to Hugo Lloris, there has been times when we've seen Lloris give it out, but Vicario's one there. You can see he's so animated. He will not have it. He's worked so hard for the bloody clean sheet. The players desperate to throw it away. Vicario never had it. So look, again, great for Tottenham. They do progress, of course, into that last 32. We'll know more, of course, on the draw towards the end, of course, of the weekend. And before we close this show, I've got to say a big, big happy birthday. And a message someone get in touch with me. Jack is a Second World War veteran and a lifelong Spurs fan. He has reached the landmark of 100 today. So, Jack, very, very happy birthday to you. He proudly served in the RAF during the World War II as a navigator, flying in the Liberators and the B-25 Mitchells between 1942 to 1946. He's been attending Spurs matches since 1933. 1933. So I've got no... Listen, my love for cups, my hope for cups goes out the window when you've got a man there 100 years old that has seen he's seen a lot. So, Jack, a massive happy birthday to you. We know you've got a Just Giving page at the moment. We're going to put a link to that in our audio and YouTube description. Happy birthday, Jack. Spurs, God, it's a late one. They did get the win, so you can go away happy with that. Final question to close it on, guys. We'll start with Chris. We'll make our way round. Chris, can we win the bloody thing? Can we go on and win the FA Cup, in your opinion? I know it's early days. We obviously yet to know what the rest of the weekend looks like in terms of the draw. Chris, what do you reckon? Can we do it?
I'm not going to say we are going to win it, but we've got the potential to win it. That's what I'm going to say. We should, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it because it's so important. This means so much to me for us to win a trophy. Can you actually imagine and just first season at Tottenham winning the FA Cup. It would be honestly just so beautiful. We've got the potential. We've got it. We've got it. So let's just see how it goes. I'm really praying as well with this month, all the injuries. Okay, yeah, it's not going to be great, but we're going to get through it like we did in December. They're going to slowly start to come back. We're slowly going to get our team back, and we can focus and get on with this cup. And hopefully, good things are going to come, because they will. Good things are going to happen. Let's just hope it will end beautifully this season. So, yeah,
Chris,
potential.
Thank you so much. I think your third show of the week, bless you. Thank you so much. It's been laughter, fun and games. Can't ask anything more than that. The last one on Spurs. Busy
Thanks,
busy
guys.
time at the moment. Busy time. It's Matt's is it 300 so far, Matt? The transfer window. What's doing to us all here?
I think we're near 1,000.
Yeah, as we realize. Matt, same question to you. Look, when you've got goals like that from Pedro Porro, do you feel like potentially Spurs' name could be on the cup?
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. We beat Liverpool, we drew away to Arsenal, and we drew away to City with a depleted squad. A cup is about performances. A cup is about moments. And Tottenham have proven this season that on our day, we can do it to anyone. It's possible.
Yeah. Matt, thank you, my man. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Russ, to close it with you. Oh, Russ, we've been here before. We've seen these cup games. Russ, listen, you are the one that everyone turns to, right? In a moment of madness where we need calming down, we need some measured views, as we always do for us. Russ, can we do it? Can we believe? Should we?
Yes, we can. I'm not saying we're going to, but like Matt and Christina have said, we've got it in our locker. And if we all believe and keep our fingers crossed occasionally and hope when we need it, we get some time added on and we do the business, then it doesn't matter how we get there. But to get there would be amazing. And of course, then you have to win. But I do think, and a lot of it's down to the draw, to be serious, isn't it? You know,
of course,
whether you're away, who you're going to meet. But sometimes people just have their name written on the cup, don't they?
They do.
Fingers crossed.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. Russ, thank you so much, guys. Thank you
Pleasure.
so much for your incredible support. Look, we've had about 1,500 of you that have stayed with us after the game. Once again, can't thank you enough for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. You know it's late. We're out to a busy month. I want to say thank you as well to my wonderful panelists here. It's a late night show. These guys never fail us. We've had the brilliant broadcast extraordinaire, Russ Williams, back. He'll be back very, very soon, as will Christina Zandes and the wonderful Matty Hayes. Guys, thank you so much for all your incredible support. Spurs are there. They are through to the next round of the FA Cup by hook or by crook. The goal belongs to Pedro Porro. As always, guys, thank you so much for incredible support. Have a lovely weekend from myself, from Matt, from Russ, from Chris. Keep safe, keep well. And as always,